Chapter 1. The Whisper Before the Wave. Before every great shift in history, there is always a whisper, a vibration in the air, a quiet tremor that only the attentive can feel. Today, that whisper is rising again. From Johannesburg to Kingston, Lagos to Atlanta, Accra to London. It rises from markets, studios, tech hubs, farms, trading floors, from kitchen tables where dreams are drawn in pencil but carried with the weight of nations. People call it many things: a black renaissance, a Pan-African awakening, a new age of mobility, a surge in ownership. Beneath all headlines, beneath all statistics, lies a bigger truth. We may be entering the first self-driven rise of global black wealth in modern history. Not charity, not aid, not inclusion, but creation, direction, formation, power. But this moment did not appear from nowhere. It is the result of centuries of refusal, survival, and brilliance expressed under every constraint. Black wealth never began with money. It began with resistance, with the refusal to disappear, to surrender culture, genius, and future. Every empire that attempted to crush the black world understood, if African people ever controlled their own resources, if the diaspora moved as one economic body, the world's balance of power would shift. And now, for the first time in centuries, the pieces are aligning. African nations renegotiate old systems. Caribbean states redesign alliances. Diaspora communities build new engines of capital. Young creators rewrite history with code, camera, rhythm, design, and science. Investors look south. Technology flattens borders, and migration reshapes influence. This rise forces an uncomfortable question: who defines value? Who controls supply chains? Who innovates? Who leads? To understand where we're going, we must begin not with numbers or charts, but with the reawakening of global black confidence. Confidence is the soil, money is the harvest. Across every continent, young Africans are coding solutions, building fintech systems, creating entertainment platforms, and reclaiming cultural influence. In the Caribbean, diaspora investments are reawakening trade, producing local industrial hubs, and reconnecting supply chains long severed by centuries of extraction. Music, fashion, film, and storytelling are no longer merely creative outlets. They are currency, signaling influence, shaping global markets, and asserting ownership over narrative. Afrobeats and dancehall echo across continents, but their rhythm carries the heartbeat of economic transformation. This is not abstract, this is measurable. Capital flows are shifting, remittances are soaring, startups are gaining valuation at a pace unseen in history, and African creative exports are drawing international markets. Connectivity, both digital and human, is bridging the diaspora to the continent, forming a network previously impossible. The foundations of the new black wealth wave are subtle yet unmistakable. They lie in technology hubs powered by youth ingenuity. They lie in the entrepreneurial spirit of returnees building businesses that generate both profit and empowerment. They lie in cultural exports that drive billions of dollars while shaping perception and influence. And while the world may notice the numbers, the truth runs deeper. Wealth is not only financial, it is political, cultural, and spiritual. It is the reclamation of autonomy, the assertion that our futures will be written by us, for us, and in our image. So listen carefully, observe closely. The whisper is there. It is subtle, yet persistent. It is growing louder each day. It moves through markets, classrooms, music studios, digital networks, and family gatherings. Whispers always come before waves, and the wave is coming.
Chapter 2. The Roots of the Rise. Wealth does not begin with money. It begins with access, ownership, and the ability to decide what happens to what is yours. African civilizations like Mali, Songhai, Great Zimbabwe, and the Kingdom of Congo engineered trade, taxation, diplomacy, and innovation centuries before Europe's rise. These empires controlled gold, salt, ivory, and other resources that drove global economies long before colonial powers claimed their dominance. Knowledge, trade networks, and cultural influence were currencies as real as any coin. But extraction began. The transatlantic slave trade, European colonialism, and later multinational resource exploitation systematically stripped Africans and their descendants of ownership. Land, labor, and capital were transferred, leaving communities dependent on systems designed to benefit others. Yet even under oppression, ingenuity survived. Black wealth never fully disappeared. It transformed. It became cultural, scientific, communal, and spiritual wealth. Maroon communities built self-sustaining economies in the Caribbean. Black Wall Streets in America became hubs of entrepreneurship and economic resilience. Diaspora networks developed informal banking systems, susu, Tantine, Esusu, long before modern microfinance. Knowledge, community trust, and strategic collaboration formed the backbone of survival and prosperity. Over the last 2 decades, cracks in the old global systems became apparent. Technology erases borders. Mobile money allows transactions without reliance on colonial-era banking structures. African governments engage directly with international markets. Caribbean nations are rethinking trade agreements. Diaspora wealth flows back, turning remittances into investments. Young populations demand innovation and create it themselves. These convergences create leverage, a foundation for the new black wealth wave. The foundations are subtle but unmistakable. Innovation hubs in Lagos, Accra, Kigali, and Nairobi produce startups attracting global attention. Diaspora capital is no longer purely philanthropic, it becomes strategic investment. Cultural exports, from music and fashion to film and literature, drive billions of dollars while reshaping global perception. This is an era defined not only by money, but by networks, connectivity, and influence. African creators reach audiences across the globe without intermediaries siphoning value. Technology enables rapid scaling. Diaspora engagement strengthens local economies, creating cycles of reinvestment. Cultural influence becomes economic influence, and influence becomes power. Consider the lessons of history. Wealth in the black world has always been cyclical, generated in periods of autonomy, creativity, and community cohesion. Today, that cycle is entering a new phase. What we see is not sudden emergence, but a continuum of centuries of ingenuity and resilience finally coalescing into measurable global impact. The ripple effects are everywhere. African fintech platforms now serve millions across multiple countries. Caribbean entrepreneurs are launching regional industrial projects, tapping into local labor and exporting to global markets. Diaspora investors fund startups that develop infrastructure, technology, and culture simultaneously. Music and film are no longer just soft power. They generate capital, influence trade patterns, and foster cross-border collaborations. All of this points towards one conclusion: the black world is leveraging its collective knowledge, capital, and creativity to create a self-sustaining system of wealth. The wave is forming from below, built on centuries of resistance, adaptation, and vision. And unlike past waves, this one is not easily co-opted. It moves with cultural resonance, technological advantage, and diaspora coordination. To witness this, one only needs to look at connectivity. Knowledge flows across continents, capital moves through networks untethered by traditional borders, and creative influence spreads faster than ever. Each transaction, each innovation, each artistic export is a building block of a new global economic reality. Whispers became murmurs, murmurs became ripples, now rise into a tide, signaling the roots of the rise, deep, enduring, unstoppable.
Chapter 3. The Gates and the Guardians. Every wealth wave has gates and guardians. These are the systems, structures, and individuals that control access, valuation, and legitimacy. They determine who gets in, who stays out, and who profits. Gates take many forms: formal regulations, credit systems, property laws, intellectual property, and financial networks. They also appear in subtler forms: cultural bias, narrative control, and perception management. Black created value is often underestimated, ownership diluted, and narratives skewed to favor others. Communities remain fragmented across borders, continents, and social strata. Guardians are equally complex. Multinational corporations, banks, global financial institutions, trade organizations, rating agencies, media conglomerates, and political alliances. These forces are not conspiracies. They are centuries-old systems maintained because they serve specific interests. And yet they are also the barriers the new wave of Black wealth must navigate. Today, these gates and guardians face unprecedented pressure. Africa accelerates, leveraging natural resources, demographic dividends, and technology. Caribbean nations reposition themselves, modernizing infrastructure and financial systems. Diaspora communities reconnect with the continent through investment, mentorship, and entrepreneurship. Technology flattens old chains, cultural influence reshapes markets, population growth generates demand. Breaking through these gates requires strategy, knowledge, and collaboration. Africa's startups, diaspora investors, and creative industries are learning to value themselves on their own terms. Valuation is no longer dictated solely by external observers. Cultural and intellectual property, once undervalued, becomes a critical asset. Global corporations notice, investors take interest, yet the challenge is ongoing. Systems built to maintain control do not yield easily. Financing, legal frameworks, and international trade often favor those already positioned in the dominant narrative. But the new Black wealth wave moves with cohesion, asserting value through networks, innovation, and influence. Consider this. Every empire in history has underestimated the ingenuity of Black economies when operating under pressure. From hidden trading networks in West Africa to maroon communities resisting colonial powers, creative resilience has always found pathways to prosperity. Today, digital platforms, global markets, and diaspora engagement create new pathways at a scale never before possible. Narrative is also power. Controlling the story of Black wealth has historically been as important as controlling the capital. Today, African media, Caribbean cultural exports, and diaspora storytelling reclaim the narrative. Platforms amplify voices previously excluded. Influence, when combined with capital, transforms markets. Music, fashion, art, and technology become vehicles for economic empowerment. The convergence of access, connectivity, and cultural legitimacy creates a new kind of engine. Black wealth is no longer defined solely by numbers on a balance sheet. It is measured in influence, mobility, and the ability to mobilize communities across continents. Yet the question remains, can this wave fully breach the gates? Can it confront guardians that have existed for centuries, maintaining systems to control value and movement? Early signs are promising. African tech hubs attract global investment. Diaspora partnerships fund infrastructure and industry. Cultural products dominate international markets. Trust networks form, linking communities across oceans. Each step forward challenges the old rules. Each success rewrites assumptions. Each investment, startup, and creative export strengthens the foundation of a global economic reawakening. This is the battleground of modern black wealth, a space where economics, culture, and strategy intersect. The guardians are visible, but they are no longer insurmountable. The gates are present, but they are no longer impassable. And the wave, rising from decades and centuries of ingenuity, refuses to be ignored. Chapter 4. The Engines of the Shift. Every major economic transformation relies on engines, forces that drive movement, power progress, and sustain momentum. For the new wave of black wealth, these engines are population, technology, creativity, resources, entrepreneurship, and connectivity. Africa's population is both a challenge and an opportunity. Over 1 billion people, the majority under 35, represent an unprecedented demographic dividend. This youth are not passive consumers, they are innovators, creators, and entrepreneurs shaping the future on the continent and across the diaspora. They are coding, designing, farming, trading, and building businesses that respond to local and global needs. Technology is the second engine. Mobile money, fintech, digital education, e-commerce, blockchain, and AI-enabled platforms flatten borders. A fintech startup in Nairobi can instantly reach users in Lagos, Accra, or London. Creative entrepreneurs can distribute music, films, and art globally without intermediaries siphoning value. These technologies accelerate wealth creation, knowledge sharing, and cross-border collaboration. Creativity itself is an engine. The African and Caribbean cultural industries are no longer mere byproducts of society. They are central to economic strategy. Music, fashion, literature, film, and digital content are generating billions in revenue. Afrobeats dominate global charts. Nollywood films travel worldwide. Caribbean cinema, dance, and festivals attract international attention. Cultural influence drives consumption, investment, and market growth. Resources, natural, human, and intellectual, form another engine. Africa contains vast reserves of critical minerals, agricultural capacity, and energy potential. Caribbean nations offer strategic logistical locations, agricultural innovation, and tourism appeal. Human capital, shaped by education, diaspora expertise, and local innovation, amplifies these assets. Intellectual property, software, media, design, is increasingly recognized as a source of measurable wealth. Entrepreneurship is the fifth engine. From small-scale startups to multinational ventures, African and Caribbean entrepreneurs are harnessing population, technology, creativity, and resources to build scalable businesses. These ventures attract diaspora investment, foster employment, and generate reinvestable capital. Entrepreneurs are bridging local challenges with global solutions, creating resilience and sustainability. Connectivity, the final engine, binds all others. Digital infrastructure, transportation networks, trade agreements, and diaspora relationships create a global loop of knowledge, capital, and influence. Africa and the Caribbean are no longer isolated markets. They are nodes in a larger global economy, where information flows instantaneously, partnerships form across borders, and capital circulates within the black world. These engines are interdependent. Technology enhances creativity. Connectivity enables entrepreneurship. Resources power production. Population drives demand and innovation.
Together, they form a network of mutually reinforcing systems, creating momentum that can scale to a global level. Consider the implications. When a young Nigerian software engineer launches a fintech app that connects rural farmers to international markets, or when a Jamaican fashion designer ships her collections to Europe and North America, or when an African mining cooperative sells lithium for battery production under local ownership, the engines are in motion. These seemingly isolated events are nodes in a larger, orchestrated economic shift. The engines are not flawless. Challenges remain. Infrastructure gaps, regulatory complexity, historical inequities, and global competition pose risks. Yet the resilience, creativity, and coordination seen across the continent and diaspora create mechanisms to mitigate these risks. Lessons from past cycles of Black economic innovation, hidden trade networks, informal banking systems, diaspora remittances inform new strategies. The wave of wealth does not wait for permission. It is powered by engines that already exist, humming, accelerating, and unstoppable. The question is no longer whether the Black world can generate wealth. It is whether the world can recognize it when it arrives. These engines combined create a force capable of driving a trillion-dollar shift. The foundations of the new Black wealth are already in motion, powered by the energy of millions, coordinated by networks spanning continents, and amplified by culture, technology, and capital. The engines are running. The wave is building.
Chapter 5. Building the New Architecture. Momentum without structure collapses. Wealth cannot rise sustainably without architecture. The new Black wealth wave requires institutions, infrastructure, alliances, industry, financial systems, and trust. These pillars form the framework for enduring prosperity. Institutions are the first pillar. Sovereign wealth funds, continental trade blocs, investment circles, regulatory frameworks provide stability and coordination. African Union initiatives, CARICOM projects, and diaspora-led funding networks exemplify how governance and collaboration can align capital with purpose. These institutions channel energy from engines into sustainable systems, ensuring that gains are protected and leveraged for long-term growth. Infrastructure is the second pillar. Roads, ports, energy grids, telecommunications, and digital networks form the veins through which commerce flows. Investment in transportation and logistics ensures markets are connected, resources move efficiently, and production scales. Energy projects, solar farms, and fiber optic networks enable technological innovation, powering startups and enterprises across the continent. Without physical and digital infrastructure, engines of growth stall. Alliances form the third pillar. Regional cooperation, diaspora engagement, and strategic partnerships create leverage. African nations working together can negotiate better trade terms, stabilize markets, and foster regional development. Diaspora networks provide capital, mentorship, and access to international markets. Caribbean nations collaborating with Africa establish corridors for trade, cultural exchange, and shared industrial growth. Alliances multiply impact. Industry is the fourth pillar. Manufacturing, processing, and technology hubs transform raw resources into value-added products. Local production, whether in agriculture, mining, or creative industries, ensures that wealth circulates internally rather than leaking outward. Industrialization is paired with innovation, allowing African and Caribbean enterprises to compete globally while retaining control over value chains. Financial systems constitute the fifth pillar. Banks, credit unions, digital wallets, bonds, stock exchanges, insurance mechanisms, and fintech platforms provide tools for accumulation and circulation of capital. Trust in financial institutions, both formal and informal, allows individuals and communities to invest in themselves, secure assets, and fund innovation.
Inclusive and transparent financial systems prevent wealth extraction and encourage sustainable growth. Trust is the final pillar. Trust between nations, communities, governments, and diaspora investors is critical. Without trust, capital and collaboration fragment. Trust is built through accountability, shared vision, and historical awareness. It enables large-scale projects, cross-border investment, and coordinated economic action. Trust transforms potential into reality. Together, these pillars form an architecture capable of supporting the trillion-dollar shift. They transform engines into enduring systems. Without architecture, even the strongest momentum can falter. With it, growth becomes sustainable, self-reinforcing, and scalable. Consider the implications. Modern African ports, rail networks, and industrial zones connect resources to markets efficiently. Digital payment systems and fintech apps allow seamless capital flow across borders. Regional trade agreements and Pan-African initiatives multiply leverage. Diaspora investment, paired with strong financial governance, creates self-sustaining cycles of reinvestment. Creative industries generate wealth while building cultural influence that shapes global perceptions. Architecture also ensures resilience. Political instability, external economic shocks, and climate change present risks. Proper institutions, infrastructure, and systems mitigate these risks, ensuring that growth is sustainable and not dependent on external aid. Lessons from past cycles, hidden trade networks, local financial systems, diaspora remittances inform the design of this modern architecture. The architecture of new black wealth is not abstract. It is measurable, observable, and replicable. It underpins growth in African cities, Caribbean islands, and diaspora hubs worldwide. It transforms engines of innovation, population, resources, technology, and culture into tangible, enduring value. Ultimately, building this architecture signals a shift in agency. The Black world is not merely participating in global systems, it is constructing its own. It is defining the rules, establishing the frameworks, and claiming authority over its wealth. The wave rises on a foundation that will endure, because it is built from the ground up by those whose futures it serves.
Chapter 6. The Trillion-Dollar Shift. Every great wave eventually breaks. Every surge of power, every accumulation of influence reaches a moment of undeniable visibility. For the new Black wealth movement, that moment is now. The engines are running, the architecture is in place. Population, technology, creativity, resources, entrepreneurship, and connectivity converge with institutions, infrastructure, alliances, industry, finance, and trust. These combined forces are propelling a shift in global Black wealth that could reach $1 trillion, an unprecedented concentration of capital, influence, and agency. This shift is not theoretical, it is measurable. African startups attract billions in investment. Caribbean creative industries generate global revenue. Diaspora remittances flow strategically into businesses and infrastructure, and cross-continental collaborations amplify impact. Markets that were once peripheral are now central. Cultural influence translates directly into economic power. Ownership is returning to those who create and innovate. Consider the significance. For centuries, the Black world was systematically excluded from global capital networks. Natural resources were extracted, cultural production was undervalued, and political sovereignty was undermined. Yet throughout history, systems of resilience, ingenuity, and communal wealth persisted. Today, those systems are converging, amplified by technology and population dynamics, creating a wave capable of transforming the global economic landscape. The trillion-dollar question is no longer can we, but how fast and who benefits. Speed will be determined by coordination,
by strategic alliances between African nations, Caribbean states, and diaspora communities, by reinvestment rather than extraction, by education, mentorship, and technology adoption. Who benefits depends on governance, vision, and cultural integrity. This is wealth that must circulate within the Black world to achieve its transformative potential. It is a reclaiming of agency, a redistribution of opportunity, and an assertion that our futures will be written by us. Education and skills development are critical. The youth of Africa and the Caribbean are the inheritors of this wave. By equipping them with tools, knowledge, and mentorship, the engines of change accelerate, creating sustainable pipelines for innovation and wealth creation. Technology, coding, fintech, digital media, and creative industries form the sectors that will define the next generation of billion-dollar businesses. Cultural influence reinforces economic impact. Music, fashion, literature, film, and media are no longer side industries. They are central to global trends, shaping consumption, narrative, and investor behavior. Diaspora networks act as bridges, connecting markets, providing capital, and fostering mentorship. These connections amplify every investment, every innovation, every cultural export. Critical resources, minerals, energy, agricultural output remain foundational, but not in like past. Extraction is now paired with local ownership, processing, and strategic management. Value is added locally, circulating within the Black world rather than being siphoned outward. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this article helpful. It all helps. The trillion-dollar shift is also philosophical. It represents a recalibration of power. Wealth is not only financial, it is political, cultural, technological, and spiritual. Control over resources, markets, and narrative translates into influence, shaping how the Black world interacts with global systems. This wave will reshape international relations. Investment priorities, trade agreements, and geopolitical influence will all be affected. Countries and corporations that fail to recognize the scale and sophistication of this shift risk irrelevance. The Black world, by contrast, is building systems that maximize autonomy, sustainability, and generational impact. Finally, the wave has symbolic power. It is the culmination of centuries of struggle, creativity, and resilience. From the kingdoms of Africa to the diaspora communities across the Americas and Europe, wealth is returning, not as charity, not as inclusion, but as agency. Ownership is reclaimed, influence is asserted, futures are secured. The trillion-dollar shift is real, it is measurable, it is unstoppable, and it is only beginning. Those who recognize its magnitude today will witness the transformation of economies, cultures, and societies across continents. The whisper has become a wave. The wave is rising, and the Black world stands at its crest, ready to claim what history always promised: agency, wealth, and influence on a global scale.